I originally was bugging both Patrick and Lewis about trying to do some little cob shed thing for the shovels. I could easily go to Costco, probably buy a plastic thing and stick it somewhere.
Where were you going to put it?
What, the cob thing or the plastic shed? Anywhere.
Yeah.
We've got a few spots, but originally I was telling Patrick that, so this property, it was a combination of both Chevron and this other private property, family nearby, or over here, Brinkman Farm, or Brinkman Farm. And then when they moved over to here where the Mariposa Arena is, there was a school nearby and they had to relocate the school. And so where we drove through the gates, that used to be a temporary school. And then they put this road in and there's a well up there.
How long was the school?
It was like only for a few years,
Yeah.
3 or 4 years.
It's an elementary school.
It's an elementary school. And now it's called Vista Las Cruces over by Lompoc on the way to Highway 1.
Realize they moved it that far.
So while they're building it, Chevron built it, funded it, and so they relocated them here while they're building it. And so that's why there is some infrastructure here. But I think as far as like, our goal really isn't necessarily, I think we wanted to create, some kind of an orchard or some kind of agricultural, whether we're grazing or something to that nature.
Put goats on the land.
We could do goats, and there's
We'll sell you some
things that
goats
we're
and some
trying to
sheep if
figure
you
out.
want.
Some sheep.
150 a head.
The what?
We don't sell you just the head, too.
Redwood ring black.
Someone asked that question.
So maybe put a barn in. That's kind of what got me thinking. Like I want to learn more green construction because we're gonna have to harvest solar or be very conscious with water and know that this is fire country. You can see the fire scars over here in the back country. That was all Alice saw last October. It's actually coming back quite well, as you can see. It's pretty much all rock anyway. The fire hit, you can see on that hill right there, there's some skeleton-looking shrubs up there, and then it's all green. There's only one spot on our property that got fire on it, but for the most part, there was no burn here. The fire trucks all were lined on this road, so they went and hiked all throughout there. They cut lines. You can see over there, there's there's 3 bear strips that they hiked up, and to fight that fire back there, like you can see, literally, this was all flames.
But it didn't just
during the Alice
on top of the ridge. It didn't come down this side.
It did not, because of these Edison lines. They were very careful not to let the fire get to the Edison lines, and then past these Edison lines is Chevron, is that facility. So it was a huge push to prevent the fire going more west and to hit these Edison high tension lines.
And how far back is the property?
So our property, so there's a fence line 2/3 up that hill. So it goes to that fence line, it kind of swoops across to where that bare rock is, and then over to this way to that second canyon over there. So it's 77 acres. So we have some options. We, for pasture land. And
Is the well on your property?
So the well's on our property.
Okay, so you own the well.
So we're gonna walk up there, and that's where this clay is that we maybe want to look at. But
So you were worried about structures, but a barn is okay?
So, we have to figure out, how we want to do the barn, but probably more likely, this would probably be a good spot for some kind of a barn.
Right.
So if you want to put a barn here, you would have to probably put a visual barrier.
So the thing with
From
the
the freeway.
Gaviota Coast is, we're in a view corridor, and that means that anything is seen from the highway has to be mitigated or prevented. So like you said, as soon as we can get our electricity going, then we're going to start watering and putting some kind of something to create a barrier, hedges, yeah. So that's kind of like starting any
big
project
trees.
here on the Gaviota Coast, or most likely anywhere in California, Santa Barbara. It's like you got to really start with what are your limitations and then move from there.
What's your plan on getting, like, timeline to get at least a barn up?
We have no idea. Honestly, we're trying to get the water going so we know what the regenerative of the water is to how much water we have. Because then we'll know what kind of orchard we could put in or what restrict it to grazing. You know, maybe that's really all we can do.
Yeah. I'm
But
just thinking of if you wanted to put a barn up before, at least try getting go through the permit process now. Because even we're trying to put buildings in, it's like 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
So at least start with a coastal commission now.
Yeah.
If you never do it, you never do it, but at least you have it.
At least get the works. Well, and I kind of understand you also can do those. You've seen them when you drive down. You see those pole barns where you just have one side.
Yeah.
So that may be something that we could just kind of start with.
Do you know what other people are doing on this stretch as far as
For agriculture?
Yeah.
It's very limited because of most places do not have wells.
Right.
So we do. Ours is 600 feet deep,
I'm more just thinking of what actually does well.
but it's windy here.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is it like this a lot, like it is right now?
I mean, this is pretty mild.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Well, so wind power is a possibility too.
We could have, yeah, we definitely could harness some
Yeah,
wind.
you're thinking.
Yeah.
Yes. We could definitely harness wind for energy, but as far as crops go,
Oh wait, but if you have the turbines, that they'd see it from the highway.
it'd have to be one of those low profile ones, like those
Yeah.
vibrating
Yeah, that's enough wind.
prototypes.
Yeah, you can do that.
I'd put goats or sheep on. This is nice grazing.
Yes, I think that is kind of what we're gonna have to do, at least to get started.
And bonus with the animals is then this is great. So if you have when you do have a fire next, this is all mowed down,
Right,
and
Yeah,
just
we-
one less thing for the fire department to have to worry about.
exactly.
Do goats or sheep? Goats will eat it down less than sheep, right?
So if you drive by El Cap, that whole field is solely grazed by sheep. We don't let the goats out.
And do they?
They'll eat it down to pretty much look like this.
So
Yeah.
you
But
prefer
will that
sheep
erode
to-
then? Does that facilitate erosion because it's that low?
No, because it's dead half the year
Yeah.
because it doesn't get water, so it doesn't really matter.
But so it'll still be there.
It'll still be
grow
there,
back,
so it'll
right?
grow
Yeah,
grow back.
so
So
it
you'll
has
get
roots
this
to hold
mustard
it.
weed
Yes.
that will grow back. That's
Okay.
The mustard is so
Nuisance.
pointless, yeah.
well.
Except
So-
for erosion control.
The reason that mustard's even here is because when the cowboys would go back and forth between the missions, they would lay mustard seed to find their way to make sure they're going the right way.
Okay.
So that's why there's mustard weed
Really?
around.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So that's why it's all up and down California.
God, they could have done something like California poppies or something really cool, right? All they have was mustard seed.
Yeah, so I mean, this property, it's kind of a funny conundrum because we want to be able to do something productive, but you have all these things to consider. You've got obviously just what you're restricted to build, but also the elements. You've got the wind, you got potential fire, you have lack of water. But it's so what's interesting is when we first got the property, we did a biological surveillance, and kind of to see what's here. And we have, I mentioned before, tar plant.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see it.
So anyway, so we are the easternmost area with tar plant that's endemic to this area location. So it does not go any further east than this property. And so for anybody developing that kind of property with knowing that you have it, there are strings attached. So the wind farm off of Lompoc, they have the Strauss Wind Farm at the Vandenberg Air Force Base that they just created 2 years ago, or they're in the works. They had found a lot of tar plant on their property. And so they have to mitigate, because they're building all these huge turbines there, they have to find other areas where they can promote or propagate or support that have tar plant.
Because they're
Because-
they're access roads, right?
Because they
The
are
turbines
taking
themselves don't
down
plant.
habitat
Oh,
locations of
yeah.
their tar plant. so, you know, the whole state of California, everybody's been like, okay, great, you have wind, you can supply 50,000 homes with electricity with the wind turbines. But this tar plant that's endemic to this coast will be, you know, will suffer.
Well,
So now they have to find 23 acres. And now, so they came knocking on our door like, hey, we heard you guys have some tar plant. And anyway, so we're actually going to talk to them because, you
yeah,
know, they want to work with us.
yeah. Well,
to
you're
support
going to
it.
show
You
us
should
some.
start a native nursery. That's what you should do.
You're going to
Native
show us
plant
some up here,
nursery,
right?
yeah.
Yes, I'll show you
And-
tar plant.
And
not a
what
bad
value
idea.
does it have other than
So
just-
put
So-
goats on the land.
Tar plant, I don't know the value other than the botanists who they get all excited. Like, I wasn't here.
Yeah, but that's botanists. They get
But,
excited about
but when
everything.
my husband is here showing the people, oh yeah, here's the tar plant, blah, blah, blah. And they were like jumping for joy. But it's like about this tall, maybe if in right conditions can get a foot tall. It's an annual, you know, so every year it dies back. It seeds and then dies back. So the state of California, they bought an adjacent piece of property next to our property. You can't see it right here, but we can go past it. Just to protect this tar plant. Well, lo and behold, they haven't done anything with that property, right? They've just let it go to natural state. There's hardly any tar plant. Because the tar plant actually does better when it's disturbed. And the cattle tend to do that. They disturb the land, they keep the weeds, the competition from taking over. So then the tar plant can reseed itself. Otherwise, if there's just all kinds of weeds and overgrown shrubs, the tar plant won't come back. So the adjacent property that's supposedly this tar plant preserve hardly has any tar plant. Meanwhile, we have tons of it.
So I wonder
So
how it adapted in that way because
Before
there-
cows are here.
well, yeah, I mean
well, they
Well, there was
probably
always deer and something on the
wildlife,
ground
more
eating.
wildlife than there are now.
they probably didn't have this many invasive weeds,
Right. Okay.
you
That
know,
makes sense, yeah.
and they may have had fires to
Right.
take away any shrubs.
And the
Interesting.
fires
Like,
may
it is a
even
per-
help
you
it
know,
for all we know, right?
hypothesis.
Well, if you go back in
I'm
history,
guessing
fires
because
have
they didn't
always,
have the
even
invasive
before
weeds-
people have
weeds.
been around,
Yeah.
and things always grow back.
Yeah.
So
Plants
anyway, that's
adapt
kind
to
of we're thinking that we could just kind of go with it and just
Sure.
become a tar plant farm.
Sure. Well,
But it
why
doesn't
not?
have any economical value.
Well,
I mean,
there's a
that I
lot
know.
of- There's a lot of money in native plants.
So,
If you have water.
so one thing, and I love plants. That's kind of my deal. But this property does have you know we can walk around. I don't know how much time you guys want to spend here, but there's tons of hummingbird sage and the black sage, and so because of the fire, we thankfully didn't get scorched or burned or whatever, but the bulldozers came through, and they had to protect these high tension lines.
Yeah.
So you can see all that kind of grass right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, after the Alisal fire, it was all completely bulldozed. It had looked more like, you see the shrubs to the right, kind
Right.
of more on the hill. That's
Yeah.
what that looked like
Ah,
a year ago.
yeah.
But because of the bulldozers, they completely took down everything.
Uh,
So it looks fine now, right?
Yeah.
But when we first got here after the bulldozers came through, you know, we were like, what? Holy cow, because we were nervous that, you know, because it's in a riparian environment, you know, what happens with erosion, you know, all of that. So as we walk around to this other area, you'll see some extreme bulldozing that was beyond anybody's imagination why they would need to do it. And so we actually had community day
Throw a 20-year-old
volunteers.
bulldozer
We
and
put
say have fun.
rice waddles. You guys know what waddles are?
Yeah.
That's
You
exactly
probably
what
work with them in construction. Anyway, I can show it to you. We covered it with burlap, rice waddles, and we did lopping, where you bring in all this vegetation to cover the ground to create some barrier in case there was an erosion event. And we put some seeds of native plants there. So it's actually come back quite a bit.
Was this the main area that volunteers did that, or was it all up and down here? Because they did a couple of shows on TV.
We made the news.
Oh yeah, okay. So
You might have seen
interesting.
us.
Yeah.
So.
I made the news.
Let's
through
go
the
up
house on
towards
fire.
the clay.
But let me ask you a question,
had a
or anybody
lamp.
knows anything about fire. We're probably going to have to live with big
Fire vents.
buffer zones,
Oh, right.
especially more in the where there's more people.
Right.
But they must know a way to make it so they don't erode, like have plants along the edges. They must have some kind of system where they do
So
that.
my understanding is, I think you're right, but Cal Fire, they're going in. They've got, so many hours that they can clock
Right,
in,
right.
and they go bonkers. It's
Yeah.
like a kid at the Tonka truck.
Yeah.
They're like, woohoo! I can't go up there because it's too rocky. I'm gonna just hang out here. I mean, they went beyond.
Well, all it is a
Necessary.
bunch of 20-year-olds, and all you tell them is have fun.
Yes.
But
Get
but we need them. I mean, they need to
we
protect
do
these
need
farms. They
them, but there has to be a little bit of a
Yeah, yeah.
supervision.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey,
Yeah, and a follow
see
through.
these Edison lines? Great, but don't. They pushed all of our shrubs, and you'll see it. They pushed them all up towards the fire, and I'm like, what? Why would you push the debris up?
Yeah.
You could go